Good afternoon, everybody. I don't know if you can hear me. It's now 2 o'clock, and I think we've scheduled to start. I just wanted to confirm if you can hear, and then we should proceed. I still see a lot of people are joining us, so maybe we'll wait for a minute or two if you don't mind, and then we'll proceed soon. All right, ladies and gentlemen, the numbers have come to almost a halt of new members joining us, or new participants. So we're going to start this afternoon. As per the invitation, this afternoon is really focusing on the launch of the Discovery benefits for 2025. So I have invited Dion Kotza from Discovery to share those with us. Once Dion's finished his presentation, I will then just take you through some of the industry changes and just give you an overview of what else is happening in the industry. 5 of the big medical schemes, large medical schemes, have launched already. I just want to touch on that, and then also just a couple of things around NHI, just a quick overview of that, and then also what we are planning for the year-end renewal period. So, ladies and gentlemen, I think, as I said, at this stage, I'm going to introduce Dion to you, and then he can take you through the Discovery session, and then we'll take it from there. Thank you very much, and welcome to everybody. Dion, over to you. If there are any questions that anybody does have, please capture them in the chat column, and then we can discuss them after the presentation.
Thanks, Gary. Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for joining. And as always, really appreciate the opportunity to present these updates to you, as we do every year. We appreciate the support, and also just a word of appreciation and thanks to the staff of NMG and Gary in particular for allowing us this opportunity to present these updates to you. As I've said in the past, we take the core purpose of Discovery really seriously in terms of making people healthier and enhancing and protecting their lives. And that really is a theme of the launch this year, and I hope it comes out as we step through the various updates and enhancements for 2025, because these have significant impacts on your organizations and of course the staff that you represent. Allow me maybe to start with just a few comments on the industry, and maybe to start with just at a macroeconomic view. I mean, South Africa is in a complex situation, but is seeing the success of some of the collaboration that we have with government, specifically in the sectors of energy, transport and logistics, crime and corruption. And yesterday, phase 2 of this partnership between government and business was signed into being, with the express commitment of both government and business to help South Africa to reach 3% GDP growth by the end of 2025, and we're really excited to see the success of this and the continued success of this collaboration between business and South Africa. Of course, South Africa also continues on this path of progress, with many inflection points recently, which are depicted on the slide. Most notably, I guess, the goodwill of amongst South Africans. And I think as we kind of engage in a new democracy with the GNU, I think it's also important to reflect on what we have going for us in South Africa and maintain the positivity that there is. My daughter always reminds me, the Springboks are doing well, so things must be on the up. What's topical for us, of course, is the NHI, and I know Gary is going to talk about it a bit later, but maybe just a few comments on that. Most notably, the work that we're doing, along with a lot of a lot else that is happening in terms of collaboration on creating a workable NHI. The first is just to reinforce the message that I think I've said, and you've heard Discovery say on public platforms, which is that NHI is important for South Africa as a whole. Achieving universal healthcare, giving all South Africans access to quality healthcare is critical for the success of South Africa and for the productivity of South Africa. And in that sense, the NHI is a good thing. I think what the concerns are that are being expressed regarding NHI, both from the healthcare sector and also from the business sector at large, is just the sustainability of the model that's being proposed to fund it. And hence a lot of the work that we're doing in the background with the Department of Health as well as Treasury around carving out a path towards a sustainable NHI as much as we do on a workable NHI. Simple reality being that by raising the sufficient funds for NHI, the burden on the taxpayer becomes close to unbearable, and unfortunately also leads to a reduction in what's available to fund the healthcare of taxpayers. And that's why we believe that you simply cannot have a single funder model in South Africa. You can achieve universal healthcare through a collaboration between the private and the public sector. The biggest sticking point is Section 33 of the NHI Act, which talks about medical schemes only allowed to offer complementary cover once the NHI has been fully implemented. But I can give you the assurance today that this is a long way off. There's many issues that still need to be resolved, not just in terms of changes to legislation, but also legal challenges on the constitutionality and the feasibility of NHI. And although kind of NHI is on a roadmap towards implementation, I think carving out these legal challenges, carving out the changes in legislation, and reaching a world in which NHI is fully implemented is, if not a decade, perhaps decades away. And therefore medical schemes remain kind of a critical component of society, and indeed in terms of the benefits that you offer your employees. If we then turn towards medical schemes and what medical schemes are dealing with, Gary has spoken about some of the other medical schemes have also announced their contribution increases. Certainly a feature is the rates of growth in medical schemes, which has been stagnant over the last few years. But I think the important thing is that the demand for private healthcare is certainly not stagnant. And even though medical schemes may not show growth since 2014, as is shown in the top left of the slide, what we do see is an increasing demand for health insurance outside of medical schemes. Of course, less comprehensive in terms of the benefits that it offers, but certainly more affordable than medical schemes, and speaks to the need that your employees have for affordable access to private healthcare. Along with that, there's also, of course, the increased demographic risk that medical schemes face, but that's why medical schemes exist. Medical schemes are there for members that have joined it in order to cover them throughout their life for whatever healthcare eventualities they may face, whether that be from an acute perspective or from a chronic perspective. Of course, if you then think also what's kind of driving healthcare globally, and indeed in South Africa, we continue to see an increase in the amount of innovative medicine that we're required to fund. And what we see is globally a 20% increase annually in the number of registrations for immunotherapy. Of course, at a significant multiple of the cost of normal chemotherapy when it comes to the treatment of cancer, and a 540% increase in the number of members accessing innovative oncology medicine. At the same time, though, we've seen 96% reduction in the average annual cost of genome sequencing over the past 10 years. And certainly we believe the data that's being gathered in that respect hopefully will have an impact on the cost of innovative medicine going forward. We've also seen the impact of digital healthcare, not just in terms of expanding access to care, but also in terms of elevating the experience of members of healthcare, and indeed also the experience of healthcare providers when accessing healthcare. And then finally, also around the precision and personalization. And I'm really pleased today to kind of present to you our progress on introducing greater precision and more personalization into healthcare and the healthcare experience of your employees. So firstly, allow me to take you through the changes for Discovery Health Medical Scheme for 2025. And perhaps just before I start, to caveat that is that all of the changes that I'm presenting to you today have been approved by Discovery Health Medical Scheme's Board of Trustees, and that all of these changes have been approved by the Board of Trustees, and they have been submitted to the Council of Medical Schemes for approval. The approvals are being awaited and typically gets granted in December, and we will communicate with NMG and indeed you as members of the medical scheme should there be any variances going into the new year from what we've presented today versus what is approved by the Council for Medical Schemes. So to start with, just a few notes on how the medical scheme is doing, how Discovery Health Medical Scheme is doing. It maintains its #1 position in open medical schemes in South Africa in terms of its market share, with about 58% of members that belong to an open medical scheme belonging to Discovery Health Medical Scheme. Maintains a very strong reserve position. We have around 27.2 billion rand in reserves. That's members' money that can be used to fund benefits. And that represents a solvency level of about 30.6% relative to the required solvency levels of 25%. And we're still proud of the fact that we're the only open medical scheme in South Africa to have a AAA credit rating granted to us by the Global Credit Rating Agency. An independent corporate advisory also labeled us as the most sustainable medical scheme, mostly because of the growth that the scheme is experiencing and the quality of that growth, in particular around the age of new members joining the medical scheme and the chronic ratio of those members. And this is a position that we aim to maintain by ensuring that we keep the scheme sustainable going forward, and that we keep maintaining a value proposition both for existing members and for new members of the medical scheme. And that strategic focus in order to achieve that has brought us to the product enhancements for 2025 around three themes. The first one being increasing access to affordable healthcare for new members. Secondly, around sustaining benefits and optimizing affordability for existing members. And finally, around precision and personalization, which in order to create greater shared value for members of the scheme. And I'll step through each one of them in the balance of the presentation. Then, to start with, then in terms of creating more affordable access to healthcare, one thing that we notice from the South African open medical scheme environment is that when you talk about the age profile of members joining the medical scheme, what we typically see is that those between the ages of 20 to 30 are underrepresented in the medical scheme environment. And when you probe a bit further in terms of why they are underrepresented, it's typically for two reasons. One, they don't realize the need or don't recognize the need for ensuring healthcare. And secondly, even if they do, they don't deem the options that are there as being relevant or affordable. What we have learned, though, is that the Smart series, which was introduced in 2016, has certainly met a real need around affordability of modern healthcare consumers. And that's simply because of the platform off of which the plan was built. And it's grown since 2016 to now cover nearly 200,000 lives across open medical schemes in South Africa on the Discovery Health Medical Scheme. And it's that platform that we believe is appropriate for that missing generation of those aged between 20 and 30, often referred to as the Gen Zs. So the research that was done this year was to understand the unique needs of these young professionals that join medical schemes for the first time. The first point that we looked at, of course, was the affordability. What is the barriers to entry from an affordability perspective. And what was clear is that given just the earning potential of a new young professional relative to someone in the same organization that's been there for a few years with more experience and perhaps more qualifications, is that they end up spending a larger proportion of their income on medical schemes. 7%, our research shows, relative to kind of between 3 and 4% for those over the age of 30. So affordability is a key factor for this generation. The second aspect that we looked at is the healthcare needs. Now, this is not necessarily recognized by the individuals, but more sort of what is it that they would typically need given the experience that we have for 20 to 30-year-olds. And of course, what is to be expected is that most of the healthcare that they need are related to accidental injuries or healthcare needs, just because of the accident hump that the 20 to 30-year-olds are exposed to, and less of a need for the care that's related to a chronic illness or cancer. Not that these don't occur for those between the ages of 20 and 30, but the incidence of that is much lower below the age of 30. And then, of course, we turn to the consumers themselves and ask them about what is it that they want from a medical scheme. And this is what's referred to in the top right around the healthcare wants. And the most value day-to-day benefits in that sector is around medication, access to a GP, mental health benefits, female health, dentistry, and optometry. And then outside of the healthcare wants, what was clear is that these modern healthcare consumers, these young professionals, have a demand for services from the medical scheme that goes beyond healthcare, which is around lifestyle and wellness. And that's because we see that Gen Zs are typically more engaged in lifestyle and wellness than previous generations. It also reflects in the vitality engagements that we have for this age cohort. So really, based on that Active Smart platform, the Smart Series platform, and then also the research into the Gen Zs, I'm very proud to introduce you to today, in addition to the Smart Series, of a new plan called Active Smart, designed around the needs of these young professionals. It offers them full cover for emergency hospital admissions that speaks directly to their needs. It does offer financial protection for planned admissions, but because of the lower occurrence of these, to reduce the cost of those, we've introduced a 7,500 Rand deductible on these elective procedures. And again, because these are mostly singles, we've only included essential maternity and oncology cover in the plan design. Speaking to the healthcare wants of this population, we introduce customized day-to-day benefits through unlimited GP visits, benefits for dentistry and optometry, benefits for mental health, and also a benefit for OTC medication. And all of this is enabled through the Smart Digital Platform and Dynamic Smart Network. And this plan will be offered from the 1st of January at a price of 1,350 Rand per month, which makes it the most affordable plan in the open medical scheme market for young professionals for the given set of benefits. And perhaps just, if I may offer that as well, given that the target market here, if their contribution forms a payroll deduction, they do qualify for the tax credit, of course. And given the current tax credit of 364 Rand, that would represent a price point for this Active Smart plan of less than 990 Rand per month. This completes then, in our view, the Smart. It completes, in our view, then the Smart Series in terms of its applicability to the membership of Discovery Health Medical Scheme, starting with Active Smart at 1,350 Rand, really suited to young professionals. Going on to Essential Dynamic Smart, established for more established professionals, and then the Essential Smart option for health conscious signals before we move into the Classic Classic Smart. Importantly, giving members an option in terms of benefit choice, but also affordability throughout that plan, throughout that price range of similarly priced plans in the market. So then moving on to sustaining benefits and optimizing affordability for existing members, the first thing that I wanted to highlight here is that the Discovery Health Medical Scheme already offers exceptional value and industry-leading cover and benefits, which is something that we're proud of. And really, we're looking to maintain and enhance going forward. A simple example of that is if we take publicly available information from the Council of Medical Schemes that speaks to how much of hospital claims are being covered by medical schemes. Our data shows that for every 100 Rand that's claimed from Discovery Health Medical Scheme for a hospital admission, Discovery Health reimburses 96 Rand and 10 cents of that 100 Rand. Whereas the cover ratio for the balance of the industry is just over 90.6% or 90 Rand in the 100 Rand. If we accumulate that over all hospital admissions for Discovery Health Medical Scheme members in 2023, effectively that means that Discovery Health Medical Scheme members got 2.4 billion Rand in additional value because of the higher cover ratio on DHMS relative to its competitors. This is really a function of our benefit design, risk management, and our negotiations with hospitals and specialists to ensure that we can offer full cover for our members. So if we then look at what influences that claims, in order to determine the contributions that fund those claims year on year, we need to consider the factors that would likely influence the increase in claims over time. And as I've presented to you before, it really is a factor of two things. Firstly, the demand for healthcare, and secondly, the supply of healthcare. The demand for healthcare is, of course, a function of the health of an individual. Simply put, a healthy individual has a low demand for healthcare because they're in good health. Their likelihood of having to see a GP, having to go for an admission, needing medicine is quite low, and the probability of them needing it over the next 12 months is quite low. Whereas for a person that's in poor health, it's likely that they're going to have to see the GP multiple times, get medicine multiple times, and may even end up in hospital for treatment of a particular illness. So if you combine all of the members in terms of that health that they represent, we have to look at the change in the average age, and we also have to look at the change in the number of members living with chronic illnesses, because that's what will influence the demand for healthcare. To the extent that average age increases over time, or the number of members with chronic conditions increases over time, that will influence the expected increase in claims then. Similarly, on the supply side, what we tend to see in the data is that even though we reimburse professionals on a tariff basis, the cost of a GP visit, the cost of a day in a general ward, the cost of medicine, what you would see over time is that even though that unit price rises in line with the consumer price inflation, that we tend to see more of those services being provided. And that suppliers themselves, here I'm talking about the hospital groups or the pharmaceutical companies or the specialists, tend to use or introduce more expensive technologies into healthcare. Think about sort of someone that's being treated for cancer 5 years ago versus someone that's being treated for cancer next year. It's expected that for the same level, for the same cancer, that treatment will cost more next year, not just because of the increase in tariffs over time, but because they're being treated with newer technology that costs more. If we build up then those different components, then we expect the tariff, the unit price of healthcare, to go up by 4.8% into 2025. The supply side, so that's the new technology and the increase in the amount of healthcare, that's 2.5%. And then the demand side adds anything between 1.9 and 5.4%, and that varies between the different plans within the Discovery Health Medical Scheme plan range, simply as a result of the profile of the members that join a particular plan and the benefit richness of what's offered on those options then. It's reflected on the right-hand side, where you can see the grey line representing the average utilization, with some plans experiencing above average utilization, such as the comprehensive, executive, Key Care Plus, and the coastal plans, and others having utilization below what is below the average for the medical scheme, such as the rest of Key Care, the Smart series, and the Saver series. Of course, we don't leave medical inflation unmanaged, so we invest a considerable amount of effort in risk management initiatives to bring down the cost of healthcare and the demand for healthcare. And of course, our Vitality program has a significant impact on that by creating healthy behavior amongst members of the medical scheme, and of course also attracting healthier lives into the medical scheme. If you then build up, if you use that build up, then you get to a point where Discovery Health Medical Scheme medical inflation ranges between 7.4% and 10.9%, heading into 2025, and that informs the contribution increases for 2025. As I mentioned, the demand side, the factor over and above CPI that reflects the age and the chronicity of the members, it differs by plan, and that's reflected in the contribution increases then. The contributions increases range between 7.4% and 10.9%, with roughly half the members of the medical scheme getting an increase of 8.4% or lower, and the balance an increase of 9.9% or higher. You would have seen maybe a number quoted in the media of 9.3%. That's the weighted average increase that the medical scheme expects to get more in contributions in 2025. Your employees will get a contribution increase that is specific to the plan that they've chosen, and that's what's represented on the slide, a number anything between 7.4 and 10.9%. Importantly, that contribution increase allows us to maintain benefits for members. We haven't reduced benefits in any way for members across the plans, so it's important to see that that contribution increase maintains benefits for members. And then we've also made some benefit updates effective from the 1st of January. I'll talk through a few of them on the slides, but a lot of this detail will be communicated to your employees through their year-end letters, and also in your engagements with NMG during the year-end review period then. Firstly, just because we know how critical an element mental health is in the workplace, we've introduced a new depression risk management program to complement the already comprehensive suite of mental health benefits that the medical scheme offers. This benefit is really designed around the needs of people that are not diagnosed with depression, but are at risk of being diagnosed with depression. And the intention of the program is to avoid that diagnosis altogether. So these individuals will be proactively identified through data that we have available for them. We'll then guide them with appropriate care into the program in order for them to get access to mental well-being consultations, virtual coaching sessions, digital therapeutics, and also, because of the link with eating disorders, also sessions with dietitians. And the intention really is for this program is to assist members that are at risk of depression, of avoiding that diagnosis altogether. We're also introducing a designated service provider for cataract surgery from 2025 to address the cost and quality of cataract surgery for members of Discovery Health Medical Scheme. The scheme spends around R1 billion a year on cataract surgery, and it's important that we ensure that members get access to good quality care when it comes to treatment of cataracts then. In other benefit updates, we are making changes to the formulary, as we do every year, that would affect your members living with a chronic illness, but they'll be communicated with through our year-end communications and given sufficient time to make any changes before the changes in those formularies and chronic drug amounts will be implemented on the 1st of January. Another area of focus for us for 2025 is in the area of female health. And so I'm pleased to introduce to you partnerships that we have with two new apps. The first is Parent Sense, that provides enhanced maternity support for young parents. And the second is a partnership with Stella, which offers personalized menopause care, really to guide our members through a difficult journey later on in their lives. I think what's really relevant to you as an employer would be the changes that we've made to the Key Care Start series, really with the intention of addressing affordability of their membership. Key Care Start today covers quite a significant number of lives, of which more than half join by virtue of being offered the choice through their employer. And in order to address the affordability of Key Care Start, we've made changes to the income band structure for Key Care Start, introducing an additional income band. And that introduction of the additional income band makes the plan much more affordable for those with earnings below 24,000 Rand a month. We also have a Key Care Start regional plan, which with very specific hubs through which members can access healthcare. There's already 2 hubs available in the Western Cape, and we're also extending those hubs to the rest of the country, in Gauteng through a hub in Pretoria and a hub in Johannesburg. So that would then, for us, complete what is the Key Care series today in terms of offering region-specific healthcare through Key Care Start, broader healthcare through firstly the regional healthcare through Key Care Start Regional, then broader healthcare through Key Care Start, affordable care through Key Care Core, and then more comprehensive access to day-to-day and hospital care through Key Care Plus. And then the final area that we focused on is around precision and personalization of healthcare for your employees. And this is based in what we've learned over the years in terms of members' engagement in their personal health, and how that reflects in terms of their ultimate mortality and morbidity risk. And this is data that's been presented to you in various ways in past presentations, but just to make the point, as intuitive as it seems, the data supports that, which is that those that are more active have lower mortality and lower morbidity. We've enhanced that analysis now to also include our research into healthy habits. So not just sort of healthy activities, but people that make a habit of those healthy activities. And that also shows that those that engage in healthy habits certainly display a lower mortality and lower morbidity. And if you then think about sort of the value that creates, if you think about a person that engage in these healthy habits, the fact that they claim less from the medical scheme, it becomes clear that if you were to invest in a person's health, give them money, give them a reward, or give them a benefit that incentivizes them to become healthier over time and form healthier physical activity habits or habits around the clinical management of their health, there should be a return on that. And the research shows that from a clinical perspective, you see R2.50 more, R2.50 return on every R1 spent on incentives for clinical habits, R3.90 on every R1 spent in incentives for physical activity. So what we've done is we've taken the data that's available to Discovery Health Medical Scheme and the broader Discovery Health, which represents around 60 million life years of data, and have looked at sort of what the pathways are for members to improve their health, what we refer to as a personal health pathway. For every member on the medical scheme, there's more than 7 million possible health pathways. And this can be quite daunting if you think about an individual that makes the decision or even unconsciously is looking to improve their health. What to do next matters, but they don't always know what it is that they are supposed to do next. And what the personal health pathways does then is to map out exactly what that pathway looks like for every adult member of Discovery Health Medical Scheme. That pathway we've then turned into an intuitive user experience for your employees that'll manifest either through the Discovery Health app or through WhatsApp. And importantly, we've replicated it on Health ID, which is the platform that that network doctors of Discovery Health users. So what personal health pathways effectively does, if you log into the Discovery Health app, is it will show you the next best action that you need to complete. That next best action could either be some form of exercise or some form of clinical action, whether it be screening or otherwise. The completion of each action earns the member the ability to earn a reward through the closure of a rings, and those rewards from a health perspective manifests in instant rewards or Discovery Miles, and from an exercise perspective in instant rewards, or what many Vitality members know as the game board. Importantly, though, this is available to all members of Discovery Health Medical Scheme and does not require them to be members of Vitality in order to benefit from personal health pathways. In the interest of time, I am going to skip the demo, but we're happy to make this available to you afterwards, and your employees will be able to use it from the 1st of January then. So over and above the rewards for completing health actions and exercise actions, it's also important that we give members access to benefits, as that is what they have purchased from the medical scheme. For the past 2 years, we have allowed your employees access to the excess solvency of the medical scheme through the Wealth Fund, which was specifically created in order to return some of the excess surplus of the medical scheme to employees in the form of benefits. And all they had to do was to complete a health check in order to access the Wealth Fund. And it's been very successful in that it's increased the number of health checks by nearly 50% already in 2023. And that's also created more data points from which we can create personal health pathways for members. So the Wealth Fund then will continue from 2025, but in the form of the Personal Health Fund. The Personal Health Fund is linked to your personal health pathway and allows you to earn a benefit in the medical scheme by virtue of your engagement in the personal health pathway. Members can earn up to 10,000 Rand in benefits based on their family structure and their plan choice on the medical scheme. And the process for earning the Personal Health Fund is quite simple, in that you simply complete the actions as recommended to you by your personal health pathway. And then for any member that joins Discovery Health Medical Scheme for the first time from 1 January 2025, in their first year of membership, they'll have access to an additional allocation to their personal health fund, equivalent to what they would otherwise have had on the personal health fund. And this is to ensure that all members of the medical scheme have access to what other members have had access to through the Wealth Fund in the past. Just to give you a sense of what the benefit is that members could get from that, present to you a family of 4 people on a classic saver plan in 2025. Apart from the 28,000 Rand that they have allocated in their medical savings account, they can also earn up to 7,500 Rand through their personal health fund by completing the actions that are recommended to them in their personal health pathway, which represents 27% more in available day-to-day benefits. That means that they can use the personal health fund in the same way that they use their medical savings account, and that represents an additional 7,500 Rand in terms of value. If they were a new family in January 2025, they'd have access to 15,000 Rand in their personal health fund during 2025. So if I summarize then for Discovery Health Medical Scheme for 2025, firstly, we focused on increasing access to affordable healthcare through the introduction of the Active Smart Plan. Secondly, sustaining the benefits of the medical scheme through the contribution increase. And thirdly, also introducing a precise and personalized healthcare journey for your employees through the introduction of personal health pathways. Then turning to Discovery Health, what we've seen over time is that many members rely on the medical scheme for their cover. But of course, we know that the medical scheme has some limitations in terms of community rating and in terms of PMB and in terms of PMB requirements. And of course, the voluntary enrollment also means that there is high levels of selection against the medical scheme, with members delaying their membership until the point that they actually need the benefits. Discovery has been building products outside of that environment to enhance these products, starting off with Discovery Gap Cover, which was introduced a few years ago. But our research has shown that there's a shortfall in the gap cover market, especially when it comes to those at younger ages. And the simple reason is that already kind of people below the age of 40 and indeed people below the age of 30 undervalue health insurance and don't really see the need for it. Yet, when you look at sort of what the potential impact is on their financial position, there's a clear case to be made that even though they present a small risk in terms of needing healthcare, if they do have a healthcare event and they do have a shortfall based on the benefits that they have available in their medical scheme, that shortfall represents a significant proportion of their income. But by virtue of the design of gap cover, in particular the way in which gap cover is rated, many individuals and employees choose not to have gap cover if they are under the age of 30. And for that reason, we've introduced Gap Active, which is a foundational shortfall cover for younger members, and specifically offers very deliberate cover for members at under the age of 30 years for only 49 Rand per month, and for those aged between 30 and 39 at 99 Rand per month. It offers members an additional 100% over the medical scheme rate on tariff shortfalls for specialists when being treated in hospital. And it also, for those that are on the active smart plan, covers the 7,500 Rand deductible that is related to non-PMB admissions. Then turning to emergency cover, or what some of you may know, we have marketed in the past as trauma cover. We've certainly seen that there's a real need amongst employers to allow their employees to be insured for traumatic events. So for a few years now, Discovery Health has offered outside of the medical scheme trauma cover, which effectively gives members access to a cover for the cost of private emergency transfers, casualty treatment, for a broad range of accidental emergencies. On the slide, that's represented as emergency call here, and costs from as little as 90 Rand per month for either 400,000 or R1 million in cover. We've enhanced that through the introduction of Emergency Plus and Emergency Max. The intention is effectively through Emergency Plus to offer members also, apart from the benefits to cover accidental emergencies, to also cover casualty treatment and also in-hospital treatment for heart attacks and strokes. And then through Emergency Max, extending that to in-hospital treatment following a casualty event for 9 defined frequent medical emergencies. That really allows you to offer your employees that emergency cover that ensures that they've got access to transport to a casualty facility, treatment and stabilization in a casualty facility, and if needed, in hospital treatment related to that casualty from as little as 90 Rand per month. All of these products have enhanced post-admission support through take-home medication, counseling sessions, and also a 500 Rand voucher per admission that can be redeemed at Clicks, Checkers, or ShopRite to assist the members then. If you consider that as being coupled with FlexiCare, which is Discovery's product outside of the medical scheme that offers essential primary healthcare insurance, you can offer an employee cover for anything between 518 and 708 Rand a month, which covers them for expenses related to primary healthcare, as well as emergency treatment in casualty and in hospital. So if you think about sort of the value that Discovery Health and Discovery Health Medical Scheme offers your organizations in 2025, what we focused on really is around sustaining the benefits for existing members of the medical scheme and enhancing their benefits through the personal health fund and the personal health pathways, as well as offering more affordable options for uncovered employees to join the medical scheme through the new Active Smart plan, as well as through the redesigned Key Care Start options. And then to enhance the cover that the medical scheme offers through our gap cover range, and in particular the Gap Active, which is the most affordable shortfall cover for young professionals. And outside of the medical scheme, for those that faces the affordability pressures that doesn't allow them to join the medical scheme, enhancing our FlexiCare products and our trauma product through the full suite of emergency cover. And then in the final part of the presentation, I'll briefly talk through the updates to Vitality for 2025. It's important to recognize that Vitality has been the foundation for shared value. And shared value simply manifests in a very simple way, as we incentivize a person to live in better health, which effectively means that healthy behavior leads to fewer claims to the insurer, and those fewer claims to the insurer leads to a healthier society and allows the insurer to fund the incentives that started this virtuous cycle of shared value then. we certainly see benefits reaping the employers of being integrated with Vitality and having their employees engage with Vitality, especially when we look at sort of the Vitality penetration in the workforce, and then the healthcare claims associated with that Vitality penetration. The higher the number of employees on Vitality, the lower the claims ratio on the medical scheme. And of course, the important part is that that your employees get the benefit of that, with 8,346 Rand in average awards earned by members of top employers during 2023. In particular through benefits such as the travel benefit and the gym benefit then. So how can your employees benefit even further from Vitality during 2025? There's 4 areas: through the expanded Vitality Fitness Network, through the Vitality Paddle Gear benefit, healthy living, and also new Vitality travel partners. During 2024, we introduced the Vitality Fitness Network. It now has more than 75,000 members registered, with more than 500,000 that have had interactions on the fitness platform. This fitness platform gives you access to all sorts of exercise categories, including Pilates, combat sports, CrossFit, and yoga. And the important part is that it expands the access to fitness facilities beyond the traditional partners that we have, beyond the traditional partners that we have on Vitality. So it's quite simple to use the fitness network. You log into the Vitality section of the Discovery app to find a facility. You can then view the schedule of classes or activities offered by that facility and book and pay for it. And that gives you then an access code that you can use to access that particular class then. We've also introduced an access pass. Similar process. You discover a fitness facility on the app, choose a single access pass or a package of passes, pick a date for those, and you can pay for it either using Free Visit, Vitality Pay, or Discovery Miles, and then scan your QR code to access the facility to use it. I'm pretty certain that Cape Town is no different to Johannesburg, that you can't drive around the corner without bumping into a paddle court. Certainly around Johannesburg, we see a lot of paddle courts going up, and it's certainly growing in terms of its popularity. And the Vitality Paddle benefit has certainly seen significant take up, with more than 30,000 benefit registrations and more than 100,000 court bookings. As a result of the popularity of paddle, we've also seen a significant increase in spend on paddle gear through our partners such as Sportsman's Warehouse and others. And for that reason, we're also introducing a Vitality Paddle Gear in 2025 through Sportsman's Warehouse and Total Sports, where your employees that use that want to get involved in paddle or already involved can get up to 50% off their paddle gear, up to a limit of 3,000 Rand per month, per year. 3,000 Rand per month would be something. I think the last 2 things that I just wanted to mention in the interest of time is just our enhancements to the Vitality travel benefits. 2 exciting additions to the Vitality travel benefit. The first one is the introduction of United Airlines as a travel partner, in particular for trips to the US. If we look at sort of the use of the Vitality travel platform, 4 out of 10 flight bookings are to North America. And it has been missing from our partner network to have a specific partner for US flights. And we're excited to have introduced United Airlines, which gives you up to 75% off direct flights to New York and Washington, D.C., as well as access to the United Club Lounge. And then finally, also a partnership with Emirates, which is long and established, but now expands to their Skywards Club, which gives all Vitality members that are on Discovery Bank with either a black or a purple card suite access to silver status on Emirates Skywards, with the associated benefits, which includes complimentary seat selection, priority check-in, priority boarding, and also free Wi-Fi on board. So we're quite excited about the enhancements to Vitality 2025. I think these are completely complementary to the changes that we've made to the Discovery Health Medical Scheme and Discovery Health. With that, I'd again just like to thank you for the partnership and for the opportunity to present these enhancements to you today. And I hope these are of great value to you and your employees during 2025. Gary, with that, I'll turn back to you.
Thanks, Dion. Yeah, Dion, there are 3 or 4 questions that I'd like to pose to you that came through while you were presenting. And the first one was when you're presenting the Smart Active, and you referred to essential maternity. And somebody just want to know what that includes and what it basically means.
So Gary, I mean, maternity is sort of the prescribed minimum benefit. So when we talk about essential maternity, we effectively talk about sort of like PMB level of care for maternity, which means that you'll have access to your care during pregnancy, delivery in a private hospital, and then the antenatal care then. Effectively, what it means is that the additional benefits that we offer on Discovery Health Medical Scheme's other plans for maternity is not available on Active Smart then. And that's simply because the needs of the employees and the members around which we designed Active Smart excludes that need for extensive care.
Perfect. Thank you, Dion. And then another question was, when would the information be available? I mean, that one I can answer as well. It's really the information on the Smart Active plan will be available via your NMG consultant. So please reach out to your NMG consultant if you want to know more about that. And we will also be sharing that information with you. We'll be sharing that information with you when we present the year-end plans. So, but if you want more information, please reach out sooner rather than later so that we can share that with you. And then the other one I'll be addressing now in my presentation, where it wants to know what is the Discovery
Gary, the simple answer is that Discovery's emergency cover can be sold standalone. It's typically sold as an addition to the FlexiCare product, but it can be sold standalone as well. So if an employer wants to bundle it with another insurance product, that is a possibility.
Perfect. Thank you, Dion. Thanks for that. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm just going to go through a couple of points with you very quickly. I mean, and just give you a highlight of just let me get my okay, is it in? Yeah. All right. So yeah, so I'm just going to talk very briefly, and there's going to be 1 or 2 things that are duplicated because I didn't check with Dion, but I mean, our NHI update is very similar, so I'm not going to spend too much time on that. And I'm going to speak a bit about the medical scheme increases and what we've seen the trend is for the year, and then some on year-end support. So if I look at the industry update, I think the important point here is that there's been a steady decline of the open medical schemes in South Africa. And at this moment in time, us looking at open medical schemes have only got access to 16 open medical schemes. And that has declined from 47 in the year 2000. But at the same time, with that decline, you see that there's really a stagnant membership. And Dion referred to that as well. I mean, if you look at all the way back from 2000 to the last 21, 22 years, the membership has remained fairly stagnant. In 2007, you saw there was an increase, and that was when GEMS was introduced. And that's the only growth real area that you've seen in the healthcare environment, where you've got 2 million members on GEMS specifically. And the rest has been fairly stagnant in the restricted as well as in the open medical scheme environment. And then comes to the question on Discovery's share of the market. And I think that is the question that was posed in the Q&A. Your top 3 schemes being Discovery, by a long way, 58% of the market in the open medical scheme environment. Bonitas is the second largest medical scheme with 15% of the market share, and then Momentum 6%, and then after Best Method declines quite fast, and that's really the market share in the open medical scheme. And that's why I said 80% of your members in the open medical scheme environment are on your top 3 medical schemes. The membership, as I mentioned, was declining or remained fairly stagnant over the last year. And really, we've seen that only 4 out of the top medical schemes had membership growth over that period. So it's really a very, very, very tough environment, and growth has not been, because we don't see any new members coming onto the medical scheme. And I think it's regarding affordability, and Dion touched on that. That is when the medical insurance products have come to the fore. We've seen substantial growth in the medical scheme insurance environment because of affordability specifically as well. But I think it's important that people must realize that the healthcare insurance product is not a fully fledged medical scheme. And we've seen that we must just make sure that people understand that upfront. So when we look at the analysis, and this is just the dashboard that I want to share with you, your consultants will share the smart review, which basically leads up to the build-up of this dashboard, looking at the key areas of all the top medical schemes. And this is really where we look at the dashboard and saying, which are the schemes that we believe are more sustainable in the long term? Because first and foremost, before we give you advice of identifying a medical scheme, we look at the sustainability of the medical scheme. And once we've identified the sustainability of medical scheme, we look at the suitability of that scheme for your profile of your staff. And so this is basically a culmination of a lot of analysis that we do based on the Council of Medical Schemes report and the financial statements from all the medical schemes. But please, this is just a summary slide. Each one of those points that I've highlighted there on the vertical axis, the size, the growth, etc., we've done a detailed analysis, and your consultants will share that with you in detail when they set up meetings with you in the next couple of weeks. As far as the NHI update is concerned, I don't want to spend too much time. I think, when will the NHI start? Really, I mean, it's already started. The NHI Act has been signed, but as Dion mentioned, there's a lot of work that's taking place, and we don't believe that anything will happen for the foreseeable future. And when I say foreseeable future, it's probably 5 to 10 years before we start seeing any change that we experience. So the message from us, and I think I've shared this with you previously, is keep everything as is. Don't make any changes on any healthcare structures within your business environment. What cover will NHI provide? That also hasn't been finalized yet. The benefit structure, there are a lot of discussions and negotiations, and I think we're quite happy to see that the President and the Minister of Health is now happy to engage with private enterprise and private healthcare and business unit of South Africa to see how they can basically work together for a better universal healthcare for all South Africans. How the NHI will be funded also hasn't been finalized, and I think Dion touched on that, and I've got one slide on that I'll share, really on the different impacts that additional 200 billion will be required for us to contribute to support the funding. And then I think the big challenge for the NHI is, does the state have sufficient doctors, nurses to assist the additional 9 million people who are currently on medical schemes? I think we know that the public healthcare environment today is struggling under to care for the people that are currently making use of those benefits. So a further 9 million people that will be reliant on that is going to put more pressure on that. So I think also, once this gets finalized, is, will people invest in the private healthcare sector in this country? Because you know, most of the private hospitals are either listed companies or big conglomerates, and are people going to invest in that if they don't know how they're going to be funded in the NHI environment? So those are all challenges that I think still have to be addressed going forward. I mean, we know there that currently there's 1.8 trillion tax collected in SA in 2023, and that is basically 3 main income streams. Your individual taxpayers, our tax base is only 7 million people approximately in South Africa who paid 618 billion rand. The corporate taxpayers is about 800,000 corporate taxpayers, which pay just under 300 billion, and then VAT contributed 430 billion in the 2023 tax year. So as I said, there's an additional 200 billion needed, and the 3 ways of doing that, alternate ways of doing that, is increasing tax by 31%, increasing VAT by 6.5%, which will basically impact on the low-income earners as well, and basically will be disastrous as far as the cost of living is concerned in that space. And then for employers like yourselves, I mean, if you consider your UIF contributions had to go about tenfold to fund the healthcare type funding tax, and what the impact will be on your margins as a business. So those are big concerns that we have as far as the funding is concerned of the NHI tax. And then I think, just to clarify this is one thing that a lot of people are not clear on, and I think this is what Dion referred to in section 33 of the NHI, is basically what is not covered by NHI will be able to be covered by medical scheme. what is covered by NHI will not be able to be covered by NHI. So for argument's sake, if the NHI Act says that maternity benefits is covered by the NHI, you will not be able to go to a private gynecologist to have your baby delivered. You will have to either pay for it out of your pocket or rely on a state facility to have your baby delivered. And those are concerns that we have. Is as soon as anything is covered by the NHI, you will not be able to have it. So medical scheme cover will be complementary to what is not covered by the NHI. And those are the areas that we are concerning, and we have made a submission around that specifically. Then I think the important point is just to put it in context is the medical scheme increases for 2025. And those 5 schemes that have announced the increases to date over the last 10 days, Discovery was the first to launch, and as Dion mentioned, with an average increase of 9.3% over all the options. Momentum launched on Monday with their average increases of 9.4%. Sizwe launched last week as well on Friday at 13.8%. Bonitas launched this morning an average increase of 10.2%, and MediHelp launched yesterday at an average increase of 10.8%. But for us, it was also important to see what was the highest and the lowest increase on each one of these medical schemes. Because as Dion mentioned, is not everybody's going to get a 9.3% increase if you're on Discovery. So some people are going to get as low as 7.4%, and some people are going to get as high as 10.9%. So you can see that on all medical schemes, bar MediHelp, who came in a fixed increase across all their plans of 10.8. The increase is very quite dramatically. If you look at Sizwe, a low of 9%, but on one of the options, you'd have as high as a 25% increase. So that is basically concerning. And ultimately, if you look at that, that is also, as Dion mentioned earlier in his presentation, depends on which of the options in the medical scheme is running at a deficit or at a surplus. Because ultimately, there are some of the options in the scheme environment that have got high utilization, and therefore those options do need to be self-funding with no such cross-subsidization from other options within the medical scheme environment. And I think this is the reasons for these different increases per option. I think the Medical Scheme Act states that every option should be self-supporting. Claims experience plays a big role. As we said, people usually buy more comprehensive cover because they know they need it. And basically low claiming members have moved to low options. And members traditionally only upgrade to options when they need these higher benefits. And that is why medical schemes don't allow option changes during the year to high options. They allow option changes to lower cover options, otherwise it is a form of anti-selection. And ultimately, there's less cross-subsidization between low and high-income claiming members, as members have already started using and moving to options that best suit their needs. So I think one way of managing this increases, and we've seen a huge increase in this over the last couple of years, is the shift to efficiency discounted options, what is basically known as network options. So in the Discovery environment, we've seen a huge growth in the Delta and Smart options. And we've seen this not only in the Discovery environment, all medical schemes do offer some form of network options. And if I look at the new business that's come in from 2021, where basically the bulk of it in 2021 was still in other options, and only 23% was sold in basic network options. And that has changed dramatically, 2022 to 2023. And 2024, it's more or less the same as 2023, where a lot of the new business is coming in at network options. So, I mean, Dion and I were speaking earlier today, and basically said that people that are currently on a freedom of choice option, in other words, not a network option, are skeptical or loath to move to a network option. But new members joining the medical scheme are quite happy to join that network option, because those network options mean a saving on your contribution of anything between 10 and 20%. And ultimately, if you're happy with those networks of hospitals, of providers, it makes sense to select one of those network options. So please, I think it's important that we see that your staff members basically are made aware of this, and us as consultants will be there to support them to identify ways of reducing the unnecessary expenditure in the healthcare environment. Furthermore, I think, and Dion touched on that as well, is the contribution increases, why they're above CPI. Healthcare providers increase their charges. New technology, imported technology is technology and medication is quite often imported. And yes, we know that the rand has strengthened a bit over the last month or two, but traditionally it's still very expensive to import that stuff from overseas. And then also we've seen a higher frequency in members claiming. People have definitely started claiming more. We've seen higher utilization across the board, where people are using their medical scheme more and more often. And unfortunately, I think people are getting less healthy. And also, I mean, we've seen things like mental health has escalated dramatically, and other claims have gone through the roof as well. And then I think important point is, and Dion touched on it as well, is just looking at the net healthcare inflation. So basically, net healthcare inflation is CPI, so traditionally the CPI of the country, and then you've got to add your net healthcare inflation. And we look at South Africa's healthcare inflation is slightly lower than some of the larger countries in the world or areas in the world. If you look at Latin America, South America, your healthcare inflation is close to 8%, where ours is 4.5%. And that's where we always said that your medical scheme increases are CPI plus medical inflation of basically 4.5%. And that's where we've seen there that the increases are between 9 and 11%. And that is as a result of the medical inflation over and above the CPI rate. So I think it's important to position it like that. I know people always say to me, Gary, but our salaries are only going up by inflation. How can we afford it? And that is where we've got to try and manage the costs as effectively as possible and really ensure that people make the best use of the plans that are accessible to them. That is basically it. Overall, I think in conclusion, I just wanted to give you an overview of the year-end support that we traditionally provide. We will be sending out member letters, and that will basically focus on people that are potentially overinsured as well, where people haven't gone into the above threshold benefits. So those people might be overinsured unless they're on a comprehensive plan for chronic conditions, etc. We will be providing webinars where people can attend these webinars, which will be addressing the changes as we discussed here and in more detail. There will also be videos that will be available for you to distribute amongst your staff. We'll also be having executive one-on-ones with the execs of your teams, if these are needed, to assist them, because they will not quite often under pressure to attend group sessions. So we can assist on one-on-ones for the execs as well. And then the activities, as I said, the SMART review report, which does the analysis, the scheme analysis, that is available. We're already starting to offer those to our clients. I know the consultants have started making appointments to present those reports to you already. The medical scheme presentations will be starting next week to basically address the changes with the staff. The paper option change cutoff is the 6th of December for us to make sure that those are loaded and activated before the 31st of December, when online option changes are cutoff dates for that is 31 December. I know a lot of the organizations that we consult with have got their own cutoff dates, but this is just the generic cutoff dates. So if your organization has a cutoff date of 31 November, 30 November, we will abide by that and we will communicate that to your members accordingly. And then all option changes are effective 1 January, as we traditionally have. So ladies and gentlemen, I think that is it from my side. I don't know if there are any questions. Let me just see if anybody has posted any questions. If there are not any questions, Steve, I can't get sorry, I can't get into the questions here now. Dion, can you see something there? I don't think there are any questions, but please, ladies and gentlemen, reach out to your consultant, ensure that they're there to support you and your staff members to identify the most suitable plan for their needs going into 2025. And from my side, I'd just like to thank you for your support throughout the year, and please reach out to us, and wish you a festive holiday season if I don't see you before then, and all the best for 2025. Thank you very much, and goodbye to everybody.